that says, okay, and I see that. If you can hear me, two choices, got it or leave meeting. I'm pressing got it, and that allows me to stay. And everyone needs to make that choice. I hope you'll select got it and stay with us. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Evelyn Wilson. I am the non-voting chair of the 10th Judicial District Nominating Commission. And I'd like to welcome the members of the Nominating Commission and also anyone else in the public who has joined us this morning through YouTube or through the telephone, which is also an option. I am going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to take a roll of all the members because I know that some of you cannot see us. I'm going to ask each member of the nominating commission to note their presence this morning. If I don't hear you, I'll go on. Tom Bath.
Here.
Annabeth Serbaugh.
Here.
Rick Gwynn.
Here.
Doug Brownlee.
Here.
Laura Mcconwell.
Present.
Josie Herrera is not present. Kevin Moriarty.
Present.
James Griffith is not present. Greg Musel.
Here.
Stephanie Moore.
Present.
Thomas Kelly Ryan.
Present.
Chris Tallarico is not present. Steve Tatum.
Here.
And Samuel Turner Sr.
Present.
All right, thank you. I am going to declare that we do have a quorum, so our meeting can continue and we can do business in this meeting. Just as a matter of housekeeping, as a matter of tradition, we all refer to each other by first names, and that is not meant to show any disrespect, just more to show that we are all cordial and we're all equal in these important tasks that we need to do. Except, as I mentioned, I am a non-voting chair, so I will not be voting. That's the difference. I have sent you a proposed agenda, and I would ask you to review that agenda. It's pretty general. And of course, as members of the commission, if there's something that you would like to add, you certainly may. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Move for approval.
Annabeth Serbaugh moves for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, okay.
Samuel Turner, seconds.
Yes,
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. I can't vote, so I'm just demonstrating. All right, motion carried. Okay, and the next thing, you've all been sent, I hope you have received and may consider the draft May 11, 2022 meeting minutes prepared by our able secretary, Kevin Moriarty. And if you would refer to those minutes, and then I would entertain a motion to approve or modify.
So moved.
Who said that? I'm sorry.
Kelly.
Kelly Ryan.
Second.
All right.
Second.
Annabeth Serbaugh. Seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. All right. Motion carried. Minutes are approved as presented. And the next thing is to consider the interest in the position of district judge. We have had, I believe, 30 applications for the position, and there is, we need to consider whether you want to interview all of the applicants, or if there are some applicants that you believe should not, for some reason or another, be interviewed, and I'll open that to the floor. Kelly Ryan.
Thank you. I think we generally talked about it before, but I'm not sure of the timing of it after we have the background checks, criminal, financial, all those things, but absent any problem with that, unless it was an issue of residency. And I know that's noted on the list that we have here as an issue. I think we should interview everyone that's made the application.
Well, Kevin sent out the statute that really applies to when the interviews happen, in order to decide who to send for nominations to the governor. Before considering someone not reside in the district, we would have to make the determination that there are an insufficient number of qualified candidates who do live in the district. And there are 2 people who have listed as their residence addresses outside of Johnson County. Tonda Hill resides in Lawrence, and let's see, Amy Coppola Crawford resides in Milford. So unless there are an insufficient number of qualified candidates who reside in Johnson County, those 2 people cannot be sent to the governor. There's one applicant who is a judge in Sedgwick County and has listed as his residence an address in Johnson County. That may or may not raise a question. You do have to be a resident of the county in which you're acting as a district judge, and unless there are insufficient number of qualified candidates, you have to be a resident to be considered and sent to the governor for the positions that we're considering. I'm in a little bit of a I know I do a lot of talking in these meetings, but in my capacity, I cannot give legal advice to all of you, because these cases may end up before me as a Supreme Court justice. If there's a dispute of some sort that comes up, then that dispute may come before me in my capacity as a judge. And here, my capacity is as an administrator of, one of my administrative jobs is as chair of the nominating commission. So I guess what I'm saying by that is that the question of residency may be one that would have to be resolved by Judge O'Connor, and there frankly may not be one answer to that question. I simply don't know whether one can have 2 residences within the same state. Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you, Justice. I just wanted to point out that we, as members of the bar, receive notifications of vacancies around the state. Recently, a Saline County judge position came up, and the announcement that comes out to the attorneys states that in order to qualify as a potential judge for Saline County, as an example, you must, at the time of the swearing in, be a resident of Saline County. And so what I would propose is that we go ahead and sign the entire slate of 30 applicants and then reserve judgment as to whether or not these 2 or 3 applicants qualify to participate in the interview process in August, as opposed to, at this point, eliminating them altogether. I just think it's a safer route to go ahead and tentatively assign everybody with the understanding that there may be a legal opinion coming out from Your Honor or somebody else indicating that they're not eligible. So that would be my proposal, as we assign all 30, despite those 3 being question marks.
Annabeth?
Well, one of the important things to me is we select these people is people who understand and know the community of which they are judging and trying to put justice to it. I would prefer people who live in Johnson County now and have lived for a while, not just move here. Just my opinion. Not legal, just my opinion.
Kevin?
I think the statute's unambiguous. It says if there are not at least 3 attorneys deemed qualified. We got 27 others who we are deemed qualified. And it's not if somebody is more qualified, it's just qualified. And in fact, those other 3 are well qualified. But the statute says if we don't have enough qualified in our district, we do have enough qualified in our district. And the notices that have gone out, some have said different things. The last one that was sent out for Bourbon County says, if there are not at least 3 attorneys deemed qualified by the district nomination committee who reside in the district, and it's a present tense instead of a future tense. So I think it's unambiguous that you live here now. If we got qualified candidates, then great. If we don't, then we have to look outside. So that's just the way I just think it reads.
The only pushback I would have, Kevin, is that I think it's the commission's decision about whether you have sufficient number of qualified candidates. I mean, that's a decision that has to be made. And perhaps it is. Perhaps it does go without saying. I mean, we have 30 candidates. Perhaps it is unambiguous that you have well enough qualified candidates. But that, all I would say is that that's a decision that needs to be made by the.
We've sent 2 of these candidates to the governor before, so I presume that they were qualified.
Kelly?
Kevin.
Would it be appropriate, I think from what you're saying, Justice Wilson, the commission should probably vote to state whether we have at least 5 or set a number and say how many we believe from the initial review are qualified. And then that would answer the question as far as anyone who has an issue with regard to residency at this time.
I think that would be appropriate. I've thought about all of these things a lot and, maybe overthinking sometimes. But I think that there's an argument that each position would need to have enough qualified candidates. Now, that's not to say that you can't send, the same 5 people for each position but each position there are 3 to fill. So if you sent the same 3 people for each position, you're going to run into a problem because one's going to be chosen for the first position. So you'll only have 2 left for the second one and 1 left for the third one. But so I would say, you might need to have more than 5 is what I'm saying.
Well,
Laura.
Well, I was going to say, so if our minimum's 3 according to the statute, so I would move that we have in excess of 3 candidates per position who have applied to us for one of these three positions, not counting the three that we're concerned about the residency.
Okay, so so your motion, as I interpret it, is that you have you have a sufficient number of qualified candidates without considering the out of
Yes.
those that do not have Johnson County residency. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
Second,
And that was who?
Sam.
Sam? Is there any discussion? Yes, Greg, you're muted. Okay.
Kind of going back to the general discussion, but I agree with Kevin that the statute seems pretty clear that we can consider folks that aren't residents of Johnson County only if we don't have enough qualified candidates.
Correct.
I'll support the motion because I believe we have enough qualified candidates. And the only reading I can make of the statute when it says qualified, it means the statutory qualifications, which are relatively minor, number of years out of, in practice and those types of things. But I think it's problematic if we get to the point where we will interview anybody from all over the state for a position in Johnson County. I agree with Annabeth that having those kind of commitments and roots in the county are important. So I will support the motion, and I guess then we might ultimately still have a decision on what resident of the district means. But we have some that we know are not residents of Johnson County. I would tend to agree with Rick that we ought to interview everybody, except that I just think that we have a large pool here. We've all, I think, been working to recruit a large pool, and it is important that we keep that pool to folks that appear to me to meet the statute and have and that are more worthy of this commission's time.
Well said, Greg.
Yes, well said. Although I have been in situations where there was such a low number of candidates that the commission did have to take that issue head on. Is someone qualified if they only have the very minimum qualifications? And their decision was no, that they thought that, implied we need someone with a little more experience in order for us to be comfortable that that person is qualified. So I just defending the rights of the commission in that regard. Okay. Any more discussion on the motion?
I would just, for the record, this is Rick, indicate that because we have a number of members of this commission who are very familiar with this slate, this isn't simply looking at a name and a law firm and concluding they're qualified. I just, for the record, think it important that we understand that the attorney component, the judge component of this commission are well acquainted with a large number of these applicants. So I just want to state that.
Thank you for that, Rick. And I'm not as familiar with them, but on paper, some pretty impressive people have applied. I'm very happy. Laura.
Well, I was just going to add, it's not that we're just looking at a list of names and making some arbitrary decision. We have 30 applications that are fairly exhaustive in our questions. And so these determinations are made, and we're looking at sort of the bright line test, and we have, I stand by my motion that we have at least
Right.
3 qualified candidates for each of the judicial positions that are open.
Well, and it's no offense to the out of district resident, that they also have some very, very, very fine credentials.
Or other divisions that don't have enough that didn't get enough qualified applicants that they feel they need to go ahead and reach outside of their judicial district. We are fortunate that we're not in that position.
Right.
So
Well
I'd call the
said.
question.
All right. I hate to cut anybody off, but is there anyone else who would like to discuss? Okay. Then I will say, everyone in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All right, motion carried. I will, with your permission, write a letter to the non-resident candidates who, there are two who are clearly not residents of Johnson County, to those two people. And then there is, Judge O'Connor has indicated that he is a resident, or he indicated his residence address as within Johnson County. So that would leave then, counting him in, there would be 28 that would be interviewed. Tom.
Thank you, Justice. I'm wondering out loud regarding Judge O'Connor. His wife, I think he owns a home here, and I think his wife lives here, and he splits time to some degree. I guess my question is, do we need to get somebody to give us a legal opinion? I mean, I realize we've got lawyers on this panel, but I'm wondering as a body, do we get a legal opinion as to what counts as a residence? That's my suggestion.
Well,
Laura?
If my recollection is Wichita elects their judges, and I'm assuming there's a residency requirement to be an elected judge in Sedgwick County.
Yes, I think the issue, we don't know what Judge O'Connor would say, and perhaps that would be, he's chief of the criminal law division in Wichita, as I understand it, and residence and residency is listed in these statutes. But there are other statutes that talk about primary residence, indicating, that the interpretation might be that if there's a primary residence, then there might be a secondary residence. I don't own two homes myself, but my sister owns two homes. And so does residence equate to home, or is it imperative that the question be answered with principal residence? And I don't know what he would say to that. Yes, Greg.
I hate to sound too much like a lawyer, but perhaps we should ask Judge O'Connor to explain to us why he meets the residency requirement of Johnson County. Because otherwise, I think Tom makes a good point, is that, I mean, we can make our own determination. I think you're right, Justice Wilson, but he is the one asking to be a judge here and asserting that he is a resident of Johnson County. Simply ask him to explain to us why we should consider him a resident of Johnson County. I do that with the utmost respect to any judge and reluctance to challenge them, other than when Judge Moriarty was on the bench.
Well, of course. I mean, and that respect is assumed, and it's obvious, Greg. I mean, I think that that is something that doesn't seem to be out of line to me. If the commission would like to request that, what are your feelings on that, Laura?
Well, we haven't always interviewed every person that's applied to be a judge in Johnson County, whether they met the residency requirement or not. And we've had, I think Rick has said he thinks we should go ahead and interview all the different people that applied. And we haven't voted on whether or not we're going to do that or not. So, I mean, I think the the residency, while it could be a threshold, doesn't mean that if there's too much confusion about this, that, I mean, I don't know that we have to interview them. And there are other people that, you know, we could decide we're only going to interview 20 and have those be it, because that means 3 really long days, and trying to keep everybody in line and remembering who those folks are at the end of the day when you go to start voting on. And so there are a whole lot of processes we haven't decided. And so I just am concerned about us getting bogged down on this one particular person who's a district court judge in the 18th Circuit, since we haven't, I mean, there hasn't been a vote on, are we going to even interview? Is that what we're going to do? So, and then I have one more question is,
Yes.
what I can't remember, is I was thinking that we needed to have at this point, an executive session portion, because I was thinking you have a little bit of a background on everybody that we got to hear before we say, yeah, these are the people we're going to interview. It seems like that's what we've done in the past.
I don't have that yet.
Okay. It seems like the KBI had done a short thing, and then we did more in depth when it was time to do the interviews, where we had the teams give their reports as well as everything else that was more in line, so that we could make that determination of who we were going to interview. So
With other nominating commissions, I've made that report in an executive session before we started the interviews.
okay, all right. My memory was we did it twofold, but that doesn't.
Okay. I don't think we have that back yet, do we, Michelle? No, we don't have them back yet.
No, and with the 30 and then with the other nominating commissions going on, so they're working as quickly as they can.
Okay. Annabeth.
Well, I feel like I do not know this judge. I only know what I read in his application, but I don't see him as being vested in Johnson County as many of the other applicants. And my position would be, I would remove him for lack of residency, and then have someone, as Tom Bass suggested, look into the fact that legally we hadn't done anything wrong.
Okay. Kelly.
I like the idea that Tom has, but there's no one short of asking for an attorney general's opinion. And that would never be timely for what we're trying to do. I think we can discuss it amongst the commission. We've got lawyers on here. And frankly, I think there's an issue that's not even, I guess everyone's thinking of this, but I don't know that there's a possibility that you can have residency in 2 different districts. If he's being considered a resident here for the application, he has to be a resident to be a judge in Sedgwick County at the same time. So it's not a primary and secondary. It'd be, can you have split residency between 2 counties, 2 districts at the same time? So I think we decide amongst ourselves. This wouldn't be something that you'd go to the county counselor's office, Supreme Court, and the Court of Appeals. None of them can weigh in on it. And frankly, I think we can resolve it here amongst the commission members.
Rick.
I'm going to, I guess, second what Greg suggested, which is you have to believe that this Judge O'Connor, before applying, did a whole lot of looking into the situation to determine whether or not it was proper for him to apply for the judgeship here. I think out of respect and deference to him, it wouldn't be difficult to ask for why he believes he can do this. We tentatively set him for a meeting with a couple of our people that get assigned to him. And if at some point the determination is we're not going to interview, or even you could go forward with the couple of people on the commission talking with him. But as of the date of those interviews, a decision is made as to whether or not he's going to be allowed to be interviewed formally by the entire commission. I would be very surprised if Judge O'Connor hasn't looked into it pretty extensively and has information that would be valuable to this commission to consider before we make the decision.
And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer either, but ultimately, if the answer isn't clear, it may not be the answer. It may just be an opinion. And then, unless and until it's challenged, which may never happen, may or may not happen, you may not know the answer. You may simply know a well-reasoned and well-researched opinion.
Justice,
Yes, Greg?
I'm looking at KSA 20-334, which doesn't conclusively answer the question, but it does say that to be a qualification for an elected or retained in office or appointed as a district court judge, you must be a resident of the judicial district for which elected or appointed to serve at the time of taking the oath of office, and shall maintain residency in the judicial district while holding office. So I suppose theoretically a judge could be a judge in County A at the time they take office and maintain that. And on the day they are sworn in as a judge in the other county, they become a resident of that county. But it certainly suggests to me that Judge O'Connor is currently a resident of Sedgwick County, else he can't be holding office there. But I would certainly like to hear his justification for believing he's a resident of Johnson County for purposes of this. And I tend to be like Rick. I mean, I'd rather err on the side of interviewing more people, but I also know that focusing our efforts and our priorities on those that are more likely to receive serious consideration is worthwhile as well.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I hate to say that, but I think the burden of proof is on him to show cause for why he considers himself a resident. We have a lot of candidates, and as we go back to what Annabeth said, these folks have committed their professions and their lives to Johnson County, and they should receive that consideration. But if he considers himself a resident, then show cause. I mean, put the burden of proof on him to just convince us that he is a resident.
Kelly?
Justice Wilson, I'd move that we interview the 28, including Judge O'Connor, at least on the schedule. And as Greg suggests, kind of in conjunction with Rick, is the commission members that are appointed to work with Judge O'Connor can certainly, that's going to be one of the primary issues that they have, and then they can report back to the commission, all subject to whether or not he is ultimately given an interview. But right now, I think you just say the 28, aside from the two that live outside the county, should be interviewed.
All right, is there a second?
I'll
Steve?
second.
Oh, before I was going to say
wait.
that he was here in Johnson County as a prosecutor. I think everybody knows that or not. And then he went to Wichita to be a district judge. So that's the fact.
Okay, point of clarification, Rick, did you second the motion?
Yes, I did.
Well,
All right.
did we vote on the Laura's motion? Is this an amendment to hers, or?
I'm sorry, Laura, was that an official motion?
Yeah, when I said that I voted that we had enough, and I made a motion that we had
27.
we had sufficient
Yeah.
vote. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so that left it at 28 because the two who put down residences that were outside Johnson County were just the two.
This applicant put down two residents, but I think one's the courthouse.
Which applicant?
The Judge O'Connor who we've been discussing. And
Oh, no, he put down a Johnson County
well, he put
address as a
down,
residence.
okay, I was just looking at his thing and he's got Westgate and he's got Wichita on his application.
Okay.
Oh, I guess that's his office. Okay, that's okay. That's a long commute every day. I just have one thing to Steve's commute and or comment. In his entire career, he spent less than 2 years in Johnson County.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion to interview the 28? And of course, you can vote no if you don't want to interview 28, but that's the motion on the table, to interview 28, and that's been seconded. Greg?
No,
Quick question is, I don't mind this process at all, and I'll support the motion, but we need to think about a process. If the two people that are assigned to Judge O'Connor wish to make a recommendation to the commission that he not be interviewed, we probably need to schedule his interview on the last day so that we can take that up on the first day. But I just, again, want to prioritize our efforts. And if those two folks want to make a recommendation to the rest of us that he not be interviewed on because of the residency question, then we decide that earlier rather than later. So we're not, again, spending additional time on that applicant.
Justice, I don't want to prolong things, but I thought the motion that I seconded was that we interview the 27, not the 28. So we might either withdraw that, withdraw that motion or amend it.
Sam, I have that Kelly Ryan made the motion and Rick Gwynn seconded.
No, that Laura made a motion first, I believe.
Yeah, to do
And that's the motion that I second.
Okay. I thought Laura's was that you not interview the non-residents.
That's right. And that's what I second. And we didn't vote on that.
You have a sufficient number who live within the district so that you need not interview out of district applicants.
Right.
And that was her motion. That did not specifically identify anything other than the fact that you have a sufficient number of qualified applicants.
Okay.
Laura?
Well, I would ask to sort of make a friendly amendment and why don't we vote how many people want to interview Judge O'Connor before we vote on that motion? Because if everybody wants to do it, then it makes it easy. If people don't want to, they're going to vote down the motion.
If you don't want to interview 28, vote no on the motion, because without Judge O'Connor, it's 27.
Right.
So the motion is to interview all 28, and that's been seconded. So that's the motion I think is on the table. If you don't want to interview Judge O'Connor, I suppose, then you should vote no on the motion. Or if you don't want to interview 28, if you want to interview 21 or some number less than 28, vote no on the motion. If you want to, at this point, interview all 28, then vote yes. So I'm going to, is there any other discussion? Okay. All who want to interview all 28, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. There are 5 who want to interview all 28.
There's
And
more than
now
that. No, we have more than that. You couldn't see Stephanie's hand. She was waving and it was in and out.
Okay. I'm going to do it. Just
Do it
call
again.
the people. I'll just do it again. I'll call a roll call vote. If you want to interview all 28, say yes. If you don't, say no. Tom Bath,
Yes.
Annabeth Serbaugh,
No.
Rick Gwynn,
Yes.
Doug Brownlee,
No.
Laura Mcconwell,
No.
Kevin Moriarty,
Yes.
Greg Musel,
Yes.
Stephanie Moore,
Yes.
Kelly Ryan,
Yes.
Steve Tatum,
No.
Sam Turner.
No.
Okay, we have 1, 2,
This is half.
3,
6 to 5.
4, 5, 6 yes. And 1, 2, 3,
5.
4, 5. No, the motion carries. We will interview all 28. However, as recommended, we will schedule Judge O'Connor's for the last day in case there is a motion on the first day.
Justice, are we also going to ask for an opinion letter from the judge to forward to our commission as to why he believes he's a resident?
Is that a motion, Rick?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Second that.
And that was,
Seconded,
who was Kelly?
Kelly.
Okay. Rick Gwynn moves and Kelly Ryan seconds, requesting legal opinion from Judge O'Connor why he's qualified. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you want him to provide that to his team?
As I understand it, he's to provide this to the entire commission.
Right.
Before the team does the interviewing of him?
You can, do you want to add a deadline?
I'll make the amendment, give him 2 weeks to provide the opinion.
Is that amendment acceptable to you, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. All right, that looks pretty unanimous. Motion carried. All right, what time do you, I'm down to number 6 on the agenda. We have to decide what time we want to start our meeting on August 29th. And usually we have a little bit of business, welcome, and then review the minutes from the previous meeting. If the nominating commission wants to go into executive session to discuss the background checks on the candidates, that usually takes a while also. And so is there, what time do you want to start, Tom?
Justice, I'm sorry. I pushed a half a day hearing to 10 o'clock that I have to join here. I just wanted to indicate my personal calendar is such that I moved to Topeka essentially the 26th, 27th of this month for this 4-week trial. Whoever my partner is on these teams, I have to get this done in the next week, which is fine. But I'm just letting you know, whoever I think we usually partner with somebody and we do these interviews, I can only be available for about the next 6 or 7 days, which is not a problem. I'll be available all weekend as well, whoever my unlucky partner is. And I'm going to sign off. I'll let you guys decide whenever you want to start. That doesn't matter to me.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let you know who you're paired with, and the person you're paired with knows. So it probably won't be Mr. Griffith because he's not available till after the end of July. So won't be.
Thank
him.
you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, Tom.
Have a nice day, Tom.
Yes,
Thanks.
Greg.
I'm not waving at Tom.
Yes, Greg.
Given the uniqueness of this situation with 28 candidates, I would like to have us think about at the morning of each day and the early afternoon. That's when we do the executive session for those 4 or 5 interviews that are coming up, as opposed to trying to do them all at once the first day, because we'll never remember it. So I would think we should set aside a half an hour of executive session at a minimum in each morning and each first thing in the afternoon hear from the two people assigned, the KBI report, the ethics report, and the credit report for those candidates that are upcoming that half day.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Annabeth.
So have we agreed as a group to interview all 28? There are a couple applications that I have great questions about that I'd be glad to eliminate without interviewing. I mean, glad to interview everyone if that's what the group wants, but I think we need to have a group decision, and I think we've assumed that. We didn't take a vote.
Well, we did. We voted to interview 28.
And
That
vote
was my
passed
understanding.
6-5.
Pardon me?
I said, and that vote passed 6-5.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, Laura.
So I have time constraints in August, similar to Tom Bath. So the time that I'm going to have to be able to do interviews are the rest of this month, and then on the 8th or the 9th of August. Other than that, I'm not available, and I'm very hopeful I'll be back or be available in time to do the interviews. And if I'm not, I'm wondering if there's an ability to have a Zoom function. I may be able to participate in that depending on where we are. If our trial has been submitted to a jury, I'd obviously be able to participate with Zoom. But anyway, I'd like to find out if that's even a possibility.
Laura, Kelly told me earlier that they are set up for hybrid hearings.
Okay.
So that would be. Okay, Annabeth.
I would need to put on notice that I need to do the interviews in July as well.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on then. With the 28, traditionally, I think you all have paired up. So there's 14 of you, which would mean 7 pairs, and 28 goes pretty neatly into 7, which would mean that each pair would have 4 people to do the deep dive background checks and introductions on. So I have a chart, and I have all of the names of the people that I can vote. But Annabeth had a idea of how this might be done a little bit differently than how we've done in the past, because you've done a lot of background checks. And so if there's no objection, I'd like to turn to Annabeth to see what your recommendation would be as to how we divide up these, you know, how we team up and then divide up the 7. What would you like to choose your teammate, or do you suggest that be done? What do you think?
Well, I have been on the committee for a long time, and I have been with a lot of people on the same team a lot of time, and I did enjoy getting to know them. I guess my real point was that I didn't want us to go back to, for example, our public defender McCullough has been an applicant many times. I've been assigned to him twice. I really think it's pointless for me to go back and be part of that team. So I don't know how we do that, but I would like to have a chance and opportunity, and I think it's fair to the applicants to talk and meet with someone new as opposed to someone I've already talked with.
Okay,
So
well, I think
that
maybe veto power, if you're assigned someone that you would be able to say, I've already interviewed him twice, I'd like to have another
yeah.
choice.
So if you pull mine out of the hat for McCullough, I say I've done that a lot of times. I think I've done it 3 maybe. I don't know, but I've done him a lot of times, and I'd like to be for somebody else.
Okay. Well, I need to pair you all up then. How do you want to be paired? Do you want me to just pair you, or do you want to choose?
Why don't you just
Kevin?
pair us?
Okay.
And then instead of going through the names each time, it's like, why don't we just get 4 names, 4 names, and 4 names? That way we don't have to do this, 28 times. So just pair us and we'll go from there.
It sounds like you already have Annabeth and Tom paired up. They're the July folks.
Yep,
Yeah.
That's what I was going to do. Tom and Annabeth. Is that all right for you, Annabeth?
It sure is.
Okay. How about Rick and Doug?
we've been together before, get along great, so I'm fine with that.
Doug, is that okay with you? Or is it all right with you, Doug, if you're paired with Rick?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
That was kind of wondersome there for a second, Doug. I was wondering if you would say no. There's a little hesitation there.
What's he gonna say?
Okay, and I think if you could follow my pattern, I'm simply going across on this on the list of all the members and non-lawyer members. The next one is Laura Mcconwell and Josie Herrera. Is that all right with you, Laura?
Yes, ma'am.
And Kevin being paired with James Griffith. Is that all right with you, Kevin?
Perfect.
Okay, and I have a note for you from James. He said, please ask whoever I'm paired with for the background checks to take the lead on dividing up who we're going to contact and pass on this email address. So I will send you James's hotmail.com address for your consideration so you can get with him. And he's going to be returning from his vacation on July 30th.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. And Greg Musel with Stephanie Moore. Stephanie's, looks like Greg is excited. I hope it's okay with you. All right, Kelly Ryan with Chris Tallarico. Is that all right with you?
I'm fine with that, except you're putting the two newbies together, if that makes any difference to you.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Because frankly, I'm so old that they didn't do this when I went through the process.
Okay.
So I'm not sure
Well,
exactly,
you've got a
other than
good point.
contacting
How about if I make an X and put Kelly Ryan with Sam Turner and
Okay.
Steve Tatum with Chris Tallarico?
That's fine. If Sam
Is
will
that
take
all
it.
right is that all right with you, Sam and Steve?
Absolutely. Yes.
I need to know how to get a hold of him. So
All right.
There's
Do
a
you-
cell number on the sheet that we got with our updated.
phone number on there? Okay.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a cell number.
Cell number, gmail.com, and his home address. If all else fails, you can write him a
I
letter.
know he likes to do interviews at Panera's, so
Okay, I hope so too.
great place for interviews.
Okay, that sounds good. And the next thing is vetting assignments. And what did you say, Kevin?
Why don't you give us 4 names in a row, like team 1, team 2, and then if somebody says, oh, I've already
Okay.
interviewed them, then
Okay,
Annabeth
you
says,
have a list. You have the list of the applicants that you received, I think, from Michelle, perhaps last night.
Correct.
And they are alphabetical. So I'm going to say team 1 is Tom Bath and Annabeth Serba. And if anybody objects to that way of doing it, let me know now. Otherwise, I'll proceed. Okay. We have the first 4 names are Ashford, Ashley, Benson, Hubbard, and Billum. And team 2, Rick Gwynn and Doug Brownlee will have Breer, Carter, Cornwell, and Goodenow. I'm skipping Coppola. Team 3, Mcconwell and Herrera will have Jenkins, Kerr, Kopecky, and Long.
what? 1, 2, 3.
And team 4, Moriarty and Griffith will have McCullough, McEntee, Miller, and Meyer.
Can I ask something since I'm doing
Yes.
the notes?
Yes.
Team 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, has Ashford to Billum. Team 2
Yes.
has Breer, Carter, Carter, Cornwell, and Goodenow. So that's 4. And then team 3 is Jenkins, Jones, Kerr, and Kopecky.
No, Jones is out of
Jones.
district.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay.
Jenkins, Kerr, Kopecky, and Long.
Okay, great. Okay,
Okay.
now I'm on track.
All right. Now, team 5, Musel and Moore has O'Connor, Parrott, Sample, and Sinatra. Team 6, which is Kelly Ryan and Sam Turner, has Singer, Tiedemann, Triplett, and Wallenstein. Team 7, Tatum and Tellerico have Way, Wilnauer, Woltman,
Way. And then
Way,
Wilnauer.
Wilnauer, Woltman, and Yarnell.
Let me find Will.
She's next to last.
Okay, go over those again.
Way, W-A-Y.
It's
Okay.
actually spelt wrong. It's W-R-A-Y.
Oh, W-R-A-Y, Ray,
Trevin Ray.
Trevin Ray,
Got it. Next.
Wilnauer, Gary Wilnauer,
Yes.
Joanne Woltman, W-O-L-T-M-A-N,
Got it.
and Yarnell, Ashlyn Yarnell, Y-A-R-N-E-L-L.
Okay.
And that's all I have on my agenda. Is there anything else the commission wishes to discuss this morning?
When we start,
When do we start? Yes. I think I heard somebody talking, but I don't know. Annabeth, did you say something?
No, I did not say anything. My phone said something and I didn't. I
Okay,
was it was mute.
okay. Yes, Kelly.
Again, I'm operating as the neophyte here. If you say generally 20 or 30 minutes, how are you blocking it out and then giving additional time in between the interviews so that we could, that's probably should be how we
Right.
base what time we start. Like you said, giving
Yes.
time at the beginning, go over minutes, procedure, and then talk about
Right.
the morning
Yes.
candidates will
point.
be interviewed in the afternoon, at the start of the afternoon.
Good point. We
And
need to
I'll
talk
also
about how
say,
long-
Justice Wilson, that we're going to have breakfast available and coffee for everybody in the morning, and we're going to bring in lunch.
All right. Thank you very much to the Johnson County Commission for providing that and for your thoughtfulness in doing that. Thank you, Kelly. We do need to decide how long the interviews are going to be and when we start. Annabeth.
Well, our procedure has been in the past to allot 30 minutes, 20 of whom we talk to the candidate, and then we talk afterwards amongst ourselves. That doesn't mean it has to be that way. I'm just saying we have a lot of people. That would probably not be a bad way to do it.
This, Rick, just to
Yes.
follow up what Annabeth just said, if we will just assume for argument, we've got 28 that we're interviewing. That'd be 14 each day. That'd be 7.
no, it's 9 each day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
9
one
and then
goes
10 on the last day.
Well, if we do it in 2 days, I guess is what I'm proposing here. I'm proposing it.
Oh,
14 each day if we did in 2 days. That'd be 7 in the morning and 7 in the afternoon. You have half-hour increments of 6.5, arguably, increments. I'm sorry, 7 half-hour increments would fit if you did it the format that Annabeth is referring to, where we interview for 20 minutes and then have 10 minutes of discussion. It would fit in 2 days is the point I'm trying to make. So I just throw that out for consideration.
Okay.
It would fit in 2 days, and what would the times be?
20-minute interviews and
Now,
10
what
minutes
time would you start? How many would you do before lunch? How many would you do after lunch?
start interviews at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then you'd have lunch and you'd start interviews at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
So then we'd need to start at 7 so we could or 7:30 so we could have our pre-briefing before we started our interviews. And then we need the pre-briefing before we start the afternoon interviews.
Correct. And I think you could have the, during lunch, take a half hour of lunch to do that discussion while we're eating. I'm just saying, yeah, it's inconvenient to start early, but we could get it done in 2 days is the point I'm trying to make.
Sounds like that's something you would like to do if possible.
I would be in favor of trying to do it in 2 days, yes.
Good idea, Rick. I like it.
Greg,
But I like not having 3 days set aside for this as well. But if you look at a realistic schedule, if we started at 8, which I'm fine with, and took an hour for our administrative issues and the executive session for the morning. So you had interviews from 9 to 12, you'd get 6 in the morning. Then if you did from 2 to 6 in the afternoon, you could get 8 in, and that would be the 14 for each day, and still have time before each session to talk about things. What I would be concerned a little bit about is that the second day, maybe we need the third morning to make our decisions and do the votes. Because at the end of the second day, if we do it in 2 days, we're going to be tired and we're going to be trying to figure out what we've heard from 28 different people. So maybe to save, not have 3 full days, we do 2 full days with interviews, and then we spend a couple hours the next morning discussing the candidates and voting on them. That would be my thought. I agree with Rick. Setting aside 3 days is hard for all of us.
Annabeth,
Well, we have had gone till 7 o'clock at night to make the final decision. I think maybe twice in the past. So my suggestion is that we may very easily come out and rule out enough people that the decision is made very quickly, and no reason to come back the next morning if we only have to stay an hour longer. So do we have to set that now? Can we not just wait till we're done to decide? We've got the 3 days on our calendar.
yeah, I would suggest definitely keeping those 3 days blocked off in case we need them. Those will be 2 pretty brutal days. That's using a lot of brain power about every minute of those 2 days. So, just keep it, and then you can see how you feel. And if you want to keep going, or you want to wait till the morning to kind of let things coalesce and make the decision then.
I think we'd have to publicize the third day, Annabeth, for open meetings purposes, with a note that we might not need it. But if we're basically looking at 8 to 6, 2 days in a row, and then make a decision either that day or the next morning. And I'm fine with that. I just wanted to, this is unprecedented and important for Johnson County. So I know none of us will want to rush into it or do it if we don't find those clear candidates that you just mentioned, Annabeth.
Right.
Good point. We decide not to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
Did we decide not to start the meeting at 7 a.m.?
Yes,
Yeah.
On the table is 8 is the suggestion, I think. Kelly.
Well, it's a long drive. You have to drive over from Topeka too, so.
Oh, well.
One additional item, I'm not saying this necessarily makes it into the third day, but we have to account for is how we're going to submit 3 nominees under the statute, because the statute does not contemplate this situation. I know the commission's had it before where we've had 2 spots open and you sent 3, and then you had a 4th one that you added and said, after you pick from those 3, add 1. But we have to talk about, do you send 5 up for each position? There's all kinds of variations and considerations that I think should clearly be done the first day, and set the rule of how our commission is going to do this, because it will be a one-off. This is not going to ever, it's not setting any precedent, because we'll never get 3 judges all at one time unless you had 3 retired all at the same time.
Laura.
Well, Kelly, that's what we do. That's what the purpose of setting aside that hour at the beginning is, to set our rules and kind of our game plan. And in that discussion, we determine how many we're going to send and what that method is. So
Well, I'm just saying that there's some extra considerations
Things
when
we have
you
to talk about.
try to
yeah.
fit within the statute, but at the same time, sending
Right.
up 3, because I've been thinking about a lot and trying to, and there's not a clear answer in the statutes. And again, it's not something that we go to ask anybody or get really legal opinion on, because I don't know that there's a situation that's ever come like before a nominating commission that I'm aware of in the state with 3 spots open under the current statute that says at least 3 and no more than 5.
So we need to be thinking about that.
Annabeth.
Going back to Greg Musil's comment about the open meeting laws, do we not need to state, I for one, if at 6 o'clock we feel like that by another hour we can come to an outcome of who we're going to send forward, I'd rather do that than come back the next day. Do we need to state in the record of our meeting that we start at 8 and may end at 7, or as soon as our business is concluded, or something like you do? I don't know, Greg, you're a lawyer and you're an open meeting law person. Tell me.
I think that's only for an executive session. You have to say when you're going to come back in public session. As long as we say the meeting's going to start at X time, the meeting is public until it's adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Rick.
Yes, I understood probably wrongly. I was wrong about Annabeth. I thought for some reason you weren't going to be at this meeting, so apologize for my lack of memory. But I understood this meeting today was for the purpose of having a discussion about number of candidates that we were going to send up in that process. And I thought about it like everybody else. And I have, this is my recommendation that we at least take under consideration, and I would be fine with voting on it today if people are good with it. I think you pick 5 and you send 5 to the governor and you say, here's your 5, governor, pick one of the 5. Then you move on to the next opening and you got 4 left. Okay, governor, pick from the remaining 4, the second judge. Okay, governor, now you're down to 3, pick from the 3, the third judge. And I just think it makes the most sense, is easiest for us as a commission to deal with picking 5 and then having the governor select from those 5, the 3 people that are going to fill the judge positions. And you're guaranteed to have 3 on that final selection because you've eliminated 2 and you still have 3 to pick from. So that's my recommendation, that we move forward by picking 5 at the conclusion of our interviews.
Yes, Kelly.
Justice Wilson, I've backed up hearings too, and I've got stuff starting here at 10:15. I'd
Okay.
like to be able to discuss it if we're going to. I didn't know that we were talking about that today, but if so, Rick's idea sounds good, but there's other ways of looking at it too. If you send 3 lists of 5, and there's just other ways of doing it, but I just can't be part of that discussion if we're going to go on with that continuing this morning. I've got to leave here in a few minutes.
I agree with Rick. If we pick the best 5 in our judgment, which is what we're going to make that judgment, that gives us enough to have 3 selections by the governor.
So the first position would be the 5. The second position would be 5 minus 1 that was picked. And then the third position would be 5 minus the 2. I hate to rush people in that decision. Annabeth?
Well, I agree.
Annabeth?
I agree completely with, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I agree completely with Rick Wynn's idea. I would just say 5 or 6, because many times at the very end, we're divided on, we have one people that we end up with one more. We have a hard time taking the last person out. But I think the idea is good, but I would say 5 or 6, whatever we send forward.
Greg?
This is a key discussion. It wasn't on the agenda for today, so I'm a little uncomfortable with forcing it on people, but I'm also uncomfortable saving it till August 29th when we only have an hour before our interviews start. So I know how hard it was for Michelle to find a time but I think it might be worthwhile finding an hour's time by Zoom to decide now before August 29th, how many people how we're going to send the nominees to the governor, because it's important.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Rick too, but I don't want to force anybody into that decision today, especially with a couple of our lay people out and not available today.
Does anyone object to setting up another Zoom to decide that issue before the interviews?
I second Greg's motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to set up another phone call to discuss this very issue of how many applicants to send and how. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Okay, we'll do it. I'll do it. Michelle will help me. We will begin at 7 o'clock with potential phone calls and end with 6 o'clock for potential phone calls. So I think we'll try to send out a Zoom first, because it's hard to set up a phone call to schedule another phone call. So please do respond to Michelle as soon as possible for dates that you would be available for this phone call. We'll set aside, what do you think, 30 minutes to an hour? We'll set aside an hour, and probably won't need it, but we'll work with that. So good ideas. Thank you all for your active participation. And if there's nothing, is there anything else we need to do today? Rick?
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. I've been unclear on this, and so I just am going to ask. If I've received some phone calls and some requests for meetings from various of these 28 people that are going to be interviewed, and I just want to be clear, there is nothing improper or wrong with accepting that phone call or that meeting with that candidate, because my understanding is our purpose is to know as much as we can about these 28 in order to make a decision.
Correct.
With that understanding?
You are correct. There is nothing to prevent you, any of you, from talking with any of the candidates or vetting any of the candidates or, going outside the 4 people that have been assigned to you. We just don't want anybody to get lost in the shuffle. So we have specific assignments for assigned official background checks by the commission.
Very good. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. We'll see you next time.